It has been 6 years since the MCU's Fantastic Four was announced, and in that 6 years, we've had a global pandemic, we had two writer strikes, and we had a ton of time to speculate on this movie. And now, finally, it is here, and we get to talk about it. Now, starting with some good things that I really enjoyed from this movie is I think this is the greatest world building we've had in the entire MCU. From the retro space mixed with the 60s aesthetic, I think it has a very Jetsons feel that feels very nostalgic while that's feeling like something new. And I think that was very interesting and exciting. And just, it felt like a lived in world. Like you're watching an action sequence and you see something of like, oh, I wonder what's going on over there, or what movie is playing over there in that theater. And in one sense that can be distracting, in another sense that's just attention to detail of this is a world that has had the Fantastic Four for 4 years, and we are just being placed in the middle of it. And I think that is a very positive thing. I really enjoyed all the little Easter eggs and seeing what's going on. I had quite a fun time doing that with my second viewing. And another thing that I really enjoyed with this movie was the balance of the tone. This movie has extremely high stakes, whether it's global or within the family of the Fantastic Four, and that tension is never undermined by a short, easy quip or a joke. Now, this movie is, in my opinion, one of the funniest movies we've had in the MCU in a while without undermining any of the tension or the emotion. The humor from this movie mainly comes from Ben or Johnny. That feels like a very organic and natural banter between a family that's been around for a very long time. The relationship between Ben and Johnny in particular is very strong in it that they can joke and poke fun at each other, but there's also a huge and underlying level of respect between the two, which I thought came out really nicely. But going back to what I was saying about the tone is we've had so many MCU movies now that it feels like a trope to add in comedy when it's not necessary. Something like devastating or heart-wrenching can happen, and we cut over to someone making a ridiculous joke that does not need to exist. This movie doesn't do that. It actually lingers on tragic or emotional beats. It lets you feel that. It lets you feel fear. We'll get to it in a second, but Galactus is terrifying, and it doesn't cut to a, whoa, that's a big dude, like what I would think something like Thor Love and Thunder would do. So I think the balance of the tone and the world building in this movie is excellent. Even certain story mechanisms that they feel new, fresh. They utilize news broadcasts a lot to kind of fill us in on how the world views and worships the Fantastic Four. We don't do the traditional origin story that we've seen so many times with the Fantastic Four. Beginning of the movie, we cut to a celebration of 4 years of the Fantastic Four. We see their origin story kind of. Boom, bam, boom, boom, going. We are sprinting through the movie. As soon as the Silver Surfer shows up, like in the trailer, we just go. Like 30 miles an hour, not even 30 miles an hour, that's a horrible thing. 200 miles an hour, we are going to the end of this movie. And it has slow down moments where we are, investing more time and care into these characters, but none of it was boring. All of it was interesting and exciting because I was invested in these characters. So that'll bring us to our Fantastic Four, and I want to talk about them individually, and I think I'll start with the Thing first. Ben, I think, gets the short end of the stick when it comes to this movie. He doesn't have a lot to do. They give him kind of a subplot, but it's like a sniffle. It isn't anything deep. We're not doing the old stuff that they did in the other movies of Ben trying to come to terms with being the Thing. No, this is 4 years into his journey of being the Thing. He has fully embraced that side of him. He loves being the Thing. They give him kind of like a subplot of a love story, but that doesn't really go anywhere. Unfortunately, I feel like Ben gets the short end of the stick, but at the same time, forgive the pun or anything, but he's kind of the rock of the group. He's the rock for Sue and Reed, for like the emotional moments. He, like I said earlier, he has great rapport and banter with Johnny, and they're always a fun, pleasant time to see. That's where kind of the humor comes, the banter between the two, and it feels so natural and organic between the two. Their chemistry, all four of them, the chemistry together is just unreal. So even though he didn't have a lot to do, he had a lot to do in terms of the character moments, and I do think that was really good. One of the pleasant surprise for me personally, because Human Torch is one of my favorite characters, is Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. The movie dials down the womanizer elements of Johnny, and I think Joseph Quinn does an excellent job of what he's given, of being kind of like the lovable douchebag brother that isn't over the top womanizer, obsessed with the spotlight like Chris Evans was. There's elements of that, especially with Silver Surfer being a woman in this. That's kind of where we get all of his womanizing elements. He's flirting with her. And I just like that everyone picks on him because he's the youngest, he's the funny brother, everyone picks on him, but everyone still respects him. I mean, Reed in that video calls him one of the smartest people on the planet, one of the most brilliant minds, whatever he says, and that includes his brother-in-law, Johnny. Everyone loves, cherishes, and respects Johnny, and he kind of runs with that, gives everyone like the ha ha ha. We see in some of the trailers that like he kind of bats Reed in the shoulder and stuff. So I don't know, it worked for me. It's not a Chris Evans performance. I don't know which one I would prefer, but I think Joseph Quinn does an excellent job in this movie. One of, if not the biggest controversial casting for this movie was Pedro Pascal, just because a lot of people, I'm not really on this boat, but a lot of people are burnt out with Pedro Pascal. Every 5 or so years we get this like it guy where they're in everything, and right now it seems to be Pedro Pascal. And everyone was kind of worried about him playing Reed because, can he play smart? We've only seen him as like the charismatic guy, like in a Nicolas Cage movie, or the super stoic, reluctant father figure. Can he play smart? Yes, he can. I told my wife after the movie I need to stop like judging or being cautious for Pedro Pascal because that man is an actor. I mean, like a true thespian. He can do, as far as I can tell, he can do everything. So he plays the character of the smartest man in the world that has that world, the weight of that world on his shoulders. He plays that very, very well. I kind of wish we could have seen a little bit more of his powers, which I'll get to that later. But as the leader of the group with the weight of his shoulders and his mind always going 24/7, you can see the stress levels that come out of that through Pedro's eyes. And it's just, Pedro Pascal plays smart very well in this movie. His chemistry with Vanessa Kirby is unmatched. So there are no notes on Pedro Pascal's performance. Now, a standout was Vanessa Kirby's Susan Storm. But she's the emotional center of the movie as the new mom with Franklin and what she is willing to do in terms of facing Galactus for the betterment of her family, her son, and the world. All of the emotional value of this movie kind of sits on her shoulders, and she does that extremely, 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 extremely well. There is a monologue in this movie that kind of took my breath away. Not to get into in spoilers, but there's a monologue from Vanessa Kirby that is so good. And like I said, the chemistry between her and Pedro Pascal, when they have an argument, it feels like a real argument between people who truly love each other. And I just appreciate that. It wasn't over the top like some like some MCU arguments or anything like that. It was a grounded conversation between a husband and a wife in regards to their child. And I was blown away by Vanessa Kirby. I can't in my head picture or think of anything she's been in, but she really caught my attention here in this movie. Now really quick, Galactus, terrifying. Everything I kind of wanted from Galactus. I'm a big Galactus guy. I think he's really cool. Terrifying. I mean, oh my gosh. When they first meet him, they go up to talk to him. Ooh, goosebumps. Glowing eyes. Oh, goosebumps. Silver Surfer, I think also, there's a lot of political conversation about her being a woman and not a man, like in the Rise of the Silver Surfer movie. But Shala Ball works in the context of this movie to kind of highlight Johnny's womanizing elements. And I think she was probably more compelling than Norrin Rad in Rise of the Silver Surfer. The visuals of her using the surfboard stick. I mean, there is a 10-minute or so space sequence in this movie that is like, wow, what am I looking at? Like, this is incredible. She's surfing on lava, she's surfing on wormholes, like, what the heck? Solid was sick. I don't really have any investment in the character of Silver Surfer, so I don't care if they changed the sex or anything. I don't care. I don't. Solid was sick. Now, moving on to some negative, mixed things. It's not a perfect movie to me. I am very positive on this movie, but I do think they do this thing where the Fantastic Four themselves feel isolated from everyone. We do have a couple of like news broadcasts, and they go out and they talk in front of people and all that, but in the main elements of the movie takes place in the Baxter Building. So we don't really get to see Johnny's characteristic of he's a womanizer. They tell us in the movie, there's a line about it, but we don't really get to see it. It's more of a tell, don't show kind of thing. And I feel like I just wanted a little bit more. I think this movie could have been 20 or 30 minutes longer to kind of show us more of them using their powers and more elements of Johnny being the womanizer person, as opposed to just telling me he's a womanizer. It's a funny line. I laughed. The whole theater laughed multiple times in this movie, actually. But yeah, it just sits on that tell, don't show. And then even when they do show it, it's kind of half-baked when he's chasing Silver Surfer. But yeah, it becomes more of a characteristic that is told, and I think we could have done more to showcase the elements of that. Overall as well, there's not a lot of action in this movie. It is kind of a superhero drama of, oh no, Galactus is coming, what are we going to do to solve it? The price that he's asking for is too much, what are we going to do? So we don't really get to see a lot besides Johnny. We don't get to see their powers a lot. Obviously, the Thing is always in his power. Like I said, this movie could have been 20 or 30 minutes longer because I feel like they should have opened the movie with an action sequence of them fighting a local, low-level threat as opposed to cosmic threat. What we do is kind of like in for Reed, it's like stretch your arm, stretch your arm, stretch your leg, stretch your leg. Meanwhile, in the 2001, he's like trying to water slide and stuff. Like, I don't know. We could have been more creative for Reed. We could have done more for Johnny. Ben, again, didn't have much to do. The only one that like really excels in this runtime is Sue. Not to harp on it for too much, but I think she is like the rock of this movie. And some of the CGI in this movie can be a little like shoddy. As much of the movie looks great, looks super cool, there's some moments. There's CGI baby that almost hits like Twilight level of what? And at first glance, not too bad, but then there's some lingering shots that just kind of like makes you unsettled of this CGI baby. And Galactus's face at some points also when he's walking, it's kind of off a little bit. It's not too much. That did not detract from my experience in this movie. And I have seen a lot of people talk about how they defeat Galactus or something like that, which it didn't bother me too much. I can understand why it would bother some people, but in the context of what happens in that moment, I bought it. I totally bought it. So, all in all, this movie was a big plus for me. I think this has been a really good month for comic book movies. I think this has been a really good year for comic book movies. I think this is a very good continuation of the first steps of Thunderbolts in the positive direction. This keeps it going, so hopefully as we go on, it just keeps getting better. It truly feels like Kevin Feige has kind of figured it out again and got attached the reins back on and all that. So yeah, this is a thumbs up for me. Very pleased with this movie as a Fantastic Four fan. So, yep, that'll be it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks.